Hi, everybody. How are you? Welcome here. Welcome back, including myself. The weird smile and then laughing was because I was cracking myself up because I was getting lost in my system. I was like, I need to click to go to the next scene. Or mustn't hit the red button that says stop streaming. That would be a little bit embarrassing, wouldn't it? Oh my goodness, now I'm too hot. Bother. Excuse me. Trying to get out of my cardigan. I was fine. And then just suddenly, once I start talking, maybe I don't talk enough during the day. I don't know. I'm not going to ask my family that. They will say I talk too much. Right. How are you? How are you doing? Are you having fun? Have you been having fun? Or is it horrible, old, boring life and work and stuff like that? If you have a job you love doing, yay, please enjoy it for the rest of us, okay? Um, Not that we would necessarily want to do what you do, but the enjoyment of. Yes, make the most of it. Yay, that's the way to do it. Right, what have I been up to? Not a lot. I'll run a tip video shortly. Um, I have delabeled my drink and I have non-sponsored my other drink. One's caffeine and one's Ramune, which is Japanese lemonade. And this is blue flavour, whatever that means. I'm calling it blue flavour because that's what it looks like. I've taken the label off because it's got a brand name on. It's got a picture of little blue circles with like a star shape on the top. So I'm guessing they are blueberries. I don't know. Here you go. I'll cover the brand name. I try not to cover the actual variety that's written on there. I'm guessing most of my viewers do not read Japanese, so therefore I am not doing free sponsorship for that brand because they won't actually know what it is unless they've drunk a lot of that sort of thing and just know the brand anyway, in which case it's all in your head. It's not anything that's up on screen. Anything else? I was adulting today and yesterday, even though it was Sunday and it was my day off. I took a day off. I definitely took a day off, but I did also do some adulting, which is like, oh, do I have to? I did a load of laundry and I hung it out, and then later on I brought it in and then I hung it up on a drying rack to finish off drying it because it didn't go out early enough to get fully dry, because that does happen from time to time. The weather was quite good, except for in the middle of the night, then it rained. I did an insurance claim for an elderly family member whose hearing aids got run over in the car park a little while ago. The the application for the claim has been accepted. I really hope there's no trouble actually getting the claim accepted and covered. That would be really good. That was today. That was a really big adulting thing, which mentally I have been knowing I have to do, and somehow it just hasn't been happening. I'm sure I've been doing other things. Played some Palia, yay. Got some achievements, yay. One of the things that happens in Palia is that when they open up a whole new map, there will be hidden chests around the map. I found them all. There were one or two which took a bit longer than the rest because I just hadn't quite got to. There was a little nook or a cranny somewhere that I hadn't actually climbed up to or whatever. So I'd done all those. I'd already done all those. But then there was a sequence of locations where there's furniture in the game, where you go there, you use one of the in-game currencies to buy the recipe for crafting that furniture. But in addition to that, there's some of that particular style of furniture, which is only available from this map, are also available. Some items of furniture, the recipes for them are only available from doing some interaction quests with a side character. and I thought I had done them all, but when I was looking through the achievement list, I realised that I hadn't. So I went and had a look online to find out if there was anything else I was missing. And it turns out there was one location that was showing up on my map with an exclamation mark. I thought I had been there and I was just waiting for something to happen. No, turns out there was one part of that space. It was in an amphitheatre which had like a marble stage on it in ruins. And there was one wall of that stage where I hadn't noticed there was something on the wall. Went up, had a look at it, was able to collect that, which was some reference to an old play or something. And then that triggered the last of those interaction quests, which meant that I now have the recipes for every single one of those furniture items, which is an achievement. I haven't made them all yet because there's also an ongoing, you get little bonus things along the way if you do certain tasks through the week, and that refreshes every week. You get these extra points, and then it goes towards certain things that they have in their little redemption line. And so rather than doing all the new furniture when it's cool new furniture to do and ticking that one off as one of the things to do, which gives you the credits to it to do the redemption, you do the ones that meet the requirement for that week, and then you hold off until the next week because it's one of those regular things. You have to craft a certain number of items. You have to craft a certain number of items that are a certain difficulty level. It just means that some of their ingredients are harder to get, which, because I'm late game, is not hard to do. And then the third one is the next tier up on those sort of items. And so the best thing to do is, and it's a certain number of those items that you have to craft. So the best thing to do is to just meet the barest minimum requirement to tick off each of those 3 tasks, and then don't do any more of that skill until you get to the next week, till that next rollover, because then, because you've got all these new recipes, you have a batch of things that you can do instead of having, when you craft something for the first time in Palia, the experience points it gives you, because that's what it's actually based on, the experience points it gives you are a lot more for a first time crafting than for ongoing crafting. Same with cooking. Most skills in a lot of games are like that. I'm just explaining that this is how it is specifically. And so I've found the quickest way to level up any of those things is to craft something for the first time. Like furniture making is crafting furniture, obviously. If you're cooking, find something on your cooking list that you haven't cooked yet and cook that. And one of the tips with Palia for cooking is, because they've got this slightly weird cooking mechanism, you have different cooking stations, and some recipes you started at one station. So there's an oven, there's a cooktop or a stove, there's a prep station, which is where you chop things and stuff like that. And then there's another one, and I can't remember what that one is. But some items, you started on that station, but to do anything else that uses that station, you have to go to a different one of the same station. So you have 2 of each station. It's easy. But one of the things to know for difficulty of doing it, because they're timed, and you look it up in the wiki, and it gives a recommended sequence of how to actually produce that item if you're doing it on your own. If you're doing it in where you've got other people helping, you don't have problems like that. But if you're doing it on your own, it can, if you haven't done it before, if it's difficult, like lots of steps, to get it done in the right sequence. Because some things you have to bake something in the oven, but before you can bake it in the oven, you actually have to have chopped it, and maybe even chopped it and mixed it. That's the other one, mixing station. So you've got all these things that you have to do in certain sequences, and it's learning how to use those sequences the right way to be able to do something that is a little bit more complex. If it's only got 3 different steps, it's easy. But if it's got a lot more than that, like you have half a dozen things to chop or roll, which is at the prep station. And then a bunch of things to mix, and then another bunch of things that have to go in the oven, and then you put them all together on the top of the stove and cook that for the last few minutes. You can get lost and end up with burnt rubbish, which isn't what you want. And if you are required to provide something that's a starred value meal, then you need to do it with the least amount, a reasonably short amount of time for each of the tasks, because you get a star value on that. Whatever it was you're preparing is more likely to happen if you get it done reasonably quickly. It doesn't have to be super fast, as long as you have a few seconds spare, or maybe a bit more than that, depending on how long it takes. Then you're going to get a star quality meal, which actually has higher value for selling, higher food value if you're eating it for energy, or if you're feeding it to your animals now that you're farming animals. So if you haven't done a recipe before, and it's a simple recipe, you're going to get a lot more experience points off it than if it's one you've done before that's a simple recipe. But if you've already done all the simple ones, because it's easy to do the simple ones first, and you're getting into the more complex ones, it's a good idea to go and have a look on the wiki to see what their recommended sequence is for the different workstations. The game will actually, you don't have to make lots of choices once you're starting to do the preparation of something. You just have to choose which workstation you're working at and when. That's the biggest thing. And remember to pick things up from the stove if you have to put them into something else or whatever, because sometimes it's a bit weird like that. It's like, oh, I did that activity there on that workstation, and you can't go any further because you can't add the ingredient to something. It's like, oh, that's because it's still sitting on the stove. I've got to pick it up as well. Some things do it automatically and some things don't. Depends on the actual workstation you're at, I guess. Anyway, so, yeah, I've been busy with Palia. I have been reorganizing something. I happened to see a clip of where somebody had got over the invisible wall into the hidden fishing area behind the housing plot. And we used to be able to do it where you could stack things up high enough and then glide down over the wall, but you hit the invisible wall. And somebody came up with a way of doing it where you use a furniture item. You actually use an oven, because you do approach to it. This is where you build outside of the boundaries. You build up, and if the base of something you're building is actually on your housing plot, you're okay. You can continue past that once you're above the ground. So you build up and towards it, because it's up over a wall that you've got to get. And you actually can build as far as your reach is within the game for your mouse, but you can't necessarily move your character that far. And so you get to the point where you build this walkway across that goes just past the wall, and you can't walk over it. So what you do is you put on a little flooring panel that sits on this flooring, this other stuff you're using, you put one of those ovens, and you have it so that the back of the oven is facing your side of the wall, but you have it at an angle so that when you have finished interacting with it, because when you finish interacting with the oven, you are standing in front of the doors of the oven, which is the front of the oven. So you use that. You have it so that the oven is at an angle. You approach it, you get the word interaction, which is bake, I think, and you go F to bake. I'm having a look at my keyboard to see what it is you do. And then you immediately hit escape. You don't have to do any baking. You just hit escape. And when you come out of that interaction with the oven, you are actually on the other side of that invisible wall, if you have put the oven in the right place. And it's a bit of just jiggling it around until you get it in exactly the right place. Now, what I figured, because most people, what they're doing is they get to that side and then they just glide down into that space. And then to go home, you go beyond the boundary, which doesn't have a wall on the other side. Not the wall that you climbed over, but the rest of the space. If you go beyond the space that you can actually approach, it just bounces you back to the entrance of your housing plot. And so that's what most people are doing. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go back the way I came in. So I put stairs all the way down to the ground on the other side, and I put another oven using the same mechanism where it's facing toward the back is towards me and the face is towards the side I want to go to. On the other side of this walkway, so there's one on one side and one on the other, so it works as a transit point, and I've put little wee signs up there. So if anyone visits my housing plot, they can't do anything with it because you can't interact with the stoves, the ovens, and the cooking mechanisms on the plot, which is a shame because they could discover that they can go down to the little secret fishing spot. But if anyone was actually visiting me to my housing plot, which I don't actually have visitors come into my plot, but if they wanted to, they could read the signs and know how to do it to get there on the other side. But I also like building outside of the boundaries or up above the ground. I've got a little wee deck that runs around just above the bottom part of the roof on the front of the house that I've got, and I've got little wee, as a visual fence, I've got these little planter boxes with plants in them and things like this. So it looks quite cute, but also it's like, yeah, it's there because I can. I've got a bookshelf up there and some books and a comfortable chair and visually in the game. So it's a bit of fun. I do not do elaborate housing builds, which a lot of people do in Palia. And it's amazing the diversity of the people who do that. It's not any one, you'd think it was one particular type of person who would do it, appearance-wise, but it's not. There's a really wide range of people who actually just enjoy, once they've got to that level of the game where you've got lots of different decorative items that you can build. And furniture does not take up room in your inventory, by the way, which is great. And your plot storage inventory's backpack. And so you can make all these bits of furniture and decorate. There are limitations as to how much stuff you can put down, but as soon as you get too much stuff down, you start putting other things away. You go, do I really need that? And you usually end up with a better design in the long run anyway. So I don't do the fancy stuff. I do have a look at other people's plots just because it's another one that gives you those points for the progress on the different paths that they're doing where we get extra redemption things. But some of them are really daunting. I get motion sickness when I'm maneuvering around inside the buildings because I do everything at a run because I've got other things I want to do. So it's like run through the house. But when they're quite complex, and the same with the properties, some of them, if I'm getting too motion sickness, I'll visit a bunch of properties and I'll give them a vote just to say, liked it or wow. But sometimes I will actually just run around outside the house itself instead of inside. Now, one of the cool things with the new path system we've got is that they've added in another house design, which is free to anybody who completes these paths. And the paths are not time limited. You can do them and take as long as you want. You can swap between the paths and things like that. You can do a paid version of them, which gives you some extra cosmetics like outfits and things like that. But you get all the benefit of the normal stuff if you just do like the housing extras and things like that. You don't get tool skins. Those are cosmetics. Those are on the paid path. But if you do the version that's the free one, which I do, you still get all the useful things, which I really like. So that's been keeping me busy. So how are you doing? Have you been playing anything that you really enjoy playing a lot more recently, or found it refreshing or something like that? Or have you discovered a new game? Come on, tell us about it. But keep your description family friendly. That's the simplest thing. We are actually in an ad break, which I should have noticed because there's a green thing up there telling me that we're in an ad break. After the ad break, we shall have a quick tip video and then we shall carry on with actually reading the story instead of me talking about Parlour again. I do a bit of that. I know. I do enjoy discovering new things in it. I quite like the fact that when you get a new map, you get a whole new area that you can explore. I like that in Palia because you can climb and you can jump and glide and all sorts of things like this, unlike in Disney Dreamlight Valley. But because of the style of the map, there are places where it looks like it would be really cool to climb up there, but because of the particular type of terrain that they've used, you can't. It's like, oh, but it just looks so interesting up there. And then occasionally you'll find a way where you can't climb up those rocks, but if you can glide to land on that platform that's lower version of the same rocks, look, there's a little wee bit that you can walk up to get to the next bit. And so you can go a bit higher up in some places, which is quite cool. Just discovering the little wee extra bits like that. So let's have a tip video. Who have we got today? I don't know. Let's find out. Find out what you can do to make the most of your time here. That's what our tip videos are for.
Hello. My name is Raccoon Z. In Z. That's right. 3 C's and 3 O's. Ha. So, welcome to the stream. We have many tips for you to help enjoy the stream. Number 1. Have a drink. I like water. As soon as my human helps me out here. So, another part of that is when I hydrate, when I take a drink, you do too. You can indicate that you've done so by giving a thumbs up or use the water bottle emoji down in chat. Number 3, sure, why not? Food or snacks? I don't have any right now, but you eat whatever you'd like to eat. Maybe it's a whole meal, maybe it's a snack, I don't know. You do you. Number 4, get comfy. You can wrap up in something. Thanks, human. That's more like it. Grab a pillow, maybe you've got a fidget toy you can play with. But do anything you like to be comfy. You could even have, I don't know, maybe your favorite human will give you scritches. Hey, human. That's right. Give me scritches. Yeah, that's right there. Yeah. No, don't touch the floof! Next, we have number 5, something to write with or write on. Hey, I can't reach the pad. There you go. And I need something to write on. I just said something to write. Oh wait, that's something to write on. I need something to write with. Okay. Okay, so I don't have opposable thumbs, but you do. Write memos down. You might need to remember something. Maybe not right now, but maybe after the stream. Number 6. Get involved. Join in chat. Chat in chat. Use commands. Play bingo because, that lady says some pretty crazy things from time to time. Make clips. You can even have them featured. Maybe we can see your clips someday. Spin the pages, which are like right down there somewhere. They look like a book or something. The thing down there with a number under chat. And just do whatever you can to enjoy chat. Thanks for watching.
God, Hickey. Right, mentally censor self. Memos down. I get highly amused by the fact that I don't tend to use particularly strong language. A lot of other people do, and their attempts sometimes to comply with the requirements here to keep it extra family friendly and nana safe. I really do appreciate it. Honestly, folks, I really do appreciate it. But I also enjoy seeing how people work with those limitations, because sometimes limitations actually spur us on to do something differently and better. I used to work for an architect's office as a draftsperson, and it was one of the things that amused me in the job was seeing some of the building sites that we would have to do a house design for, whether on an inner city site, Auckland. So there's still lots of room, relatively speaking. Fires different creative cylinders. Exactly. So where you've got a housing suburb that's one of the inner city suburbs, and in the old days they used to have quite a long section of land behind it so that people could grow their own vegetables, the kids had somewhere to run around and play outside, all that sort of thing, because that was just the attitude towards having a bit of land with your own house on it in the city. And so, as people wanted houses in the city, and as council changed the rules, they actually came up with an idea where you could cross lease a site. So, technically, the property became owned by the two different households that were on that site, and each one had the full entitlement to use the part of the site that their house was on. They actually had legal boundaries and everything. So it's technically it's a full section of land, but it's split into two halves without actually being subdivided and becoming two completely independent properties, because that's a whole other avenue. And so what they would do is we were doing houses that went on the other part of a section like that, and it was referred to as infill housing because you're filling in the gaps. The houses on those sites sometimes seemed initially like it was going to be really hard to put a house on a site, because the house would have been. Auckland is a very, very hilly city. It's made up of lots and lots of little hills, and some of them are quite, even though they're little, they're quite significant because there are a lot of mini volcanoes. That's how the land was formed. 52 of them, I think, in the Auckland area. It's a lot. Stable. They've been like that for a very, very, very long time. And so you'd have one of these pieces of property, and on paper it would be a rectangle, roughly. And yet, in fact, the old house that was first built on the site was built near the front of the site, and then there'd be a little bit of a backyard, and it went up a bit of a hill, one of these hills, quite steeply behind the house. And yet they were allowed to cross lease the site, and somebody could buy the cross lease and build a house on the back of the site. But it's the part of the land that's hard to build on. So it's smaller than normal because people build bigger houses these days, and there are restrictions as to how close you can get to the boundaries and how high you can go when you're near the boundary. And there's a whole lot of maths involved with that. There's a height in relation to the boundary. So you can go up to a certain height, and then after that you can get taller, but you have to be further away from the boundary, and it follows an angle. Depending on which council you're with and which part of the area that you're in, as to which ratio of heights and angles that you use. So these are quite tough restrictions, especially, I mean, thankfully the height is compared to where the boundary line is. So if the boundary line goes up the hill, that's in your favour. But it's like there's not a lot of room to build a house. And then on top of that, you're building up the side of this hill. First look, it's really difficult because it's quite awkward. And then you'd think, oh, it'd be so much easier if we just had lots of room. And then I actually did. I was doing the drafting for a design that one of the architects did that was way out in the middle of nowhere. It wasn't a farm, but it was like a lifestyle block, which is a mini farm. It's much, much, much smaller, but you don't have to. You can get away with mowing the lawn or letting the neighbour put their sheep on your grass to keep it down and tidy without having to have animals or crops to look after that space. Anyway, so the boundaries were sort of like way over there and way over there. There were no restrictions on the house at all. And it was like, and you end up with this really boring house because you're not having to work around these constraints. It's got a living room there, it's got a kitchen there, it's got a bedroom there, it's got the master bedroom there, it's got another bedroom there, and it's got the bathroom and the laundry along the back wall of the house. And that side of it's facing north because it's nice and warm and sunny. And the other side is facing south because that's where the bad weather comes from. And that's about it. Whereas the ones that were in the inner city sites, they'd have several different floors, but they weren't above each other. They would be behind each other going up the site. Sometimes they'd be overlooking a little bit the lower level. And they couldn't be quite as wide because the old sites were quite narrow. And they couldn't encroach too far forward to where the shared boundary was. And all sorts of things like this. And you had these restrictions, and frustrating, but incredibly satisfying and very, very interesting houses. You could, I mean, if you were in the building industry doing housing in the city, you would recognize the some of those boundary constraints with the shape of a house. You're trying to get as much house as you can in the amount of space that you've got. And so sometimes people would build as close as they could and as high as they could, and then they'd actually have the angle of their roof at the same angle as what that restriction was. And so they were filling up that envelope. That's what it was referred to as. But it was actually really interesting seeing how those constraints affected everything like that. And I find the same with language. There's a creator on Instagram that I follow who is in an industry that's not really my thing. Not a problem. I'm not required to go and spend a lot of time in their workplace. They associate with a bunch of people that I don't have any particular connection with, living a lifestyle that I personally don't want to be involved with at all. They are. That's their choices. I don't have a problem with that. But I really, really enjoy the posts that they make. Now, one of the things that amuses me is because of the community standards requirements on Instagram. And I know some people get away with stuff that they probably shouldn't be allowed to get away with. But this particular creator, because of the field that they work and live in, is very aware of the fact that this has certain things that are acceptable, but in normal society, this is not stuff that we really put in everybody's faces and discuss it in everybody's faces. And so they have come up with a way of talking about being safe, doing things safely, being yourself, which references some stuff that we wouldn't be allowed to talk about here. And yet they do it in ways that cover the information. It's gently amusing, but you still get the point that you need. And I love the fact that they do it. It's got this gentle humor with it, but you still get the punch of the point that they're making about being personally safe and all these other sorts of things. And it's fantastic. I love it. And it's because of these restrictions. They've recognized the restrictions that they have with being on Instagram doing community-friendly posts. Yes, I know we've got this going on, the hoop of winnowing. And they've used that. They've made it a feature. It's not a bug. And we've got butterflies to wear now. So there you go. That's your inspirational chat for this afternoon. Butterflies. I've got butterflies here somewhere. And they're the right colour. They're the right colour for Shu. I know that. Oh, I really need to sit low for these ones. Right, I'm just going to check what I missed. But yes, it does actually fire different creative cylinders in your mind when you have restrictions, and it's good. And so next time you come against some sort of restriction, yes, have a moan about it initially, but then see how you can use it in your favour. I'm just going to find out where my egg timer is and turn it on and get it started. That's going, that's good. And Shu says that Goriki is an illustrious red panda. We have illustrious red panda is a very common one, I feel, here. I don't know if it actually is, but it feels like it sometimes, doesn't it? And hi, Shu, great to have you here too. That's lovely. News in from Q with apologies, saying that she can't be around very much at the moment just because there's lots of life stuff going on, which is pretty stressful. So wishing her all the best and hoping that things get in line with what's needed and in a way that's really comfortable and positively so. Goriki says that Shu is an astonishing ray of light. This is a huge streak of an edible. Well, you'll have to go and change the keywords that are in it then. For anyone who's watching who's not familiar, our affirmations are taken from phrases that are used in the I like Hugh and I like Hugh too. If you complete a level in the same as or under the number of moves that they recommend, that they say are ideal, then you get one of these affirmation statements, which is really cute. And they're done as 2-part statements. So they work out really well. Oh, and Shu says that I am a shining fluffy kitten. One more non-edible. We have had pizzas and boxes of chocolates in the affirmations. But you get idiot when a time is same as or oh, okay. That's worth knowing. I think the number 1 version versus the number 2 version. Number 1 doesn't give you anything if you get worse number of moves. It just acknowledges that you finished it. At least that's what it felt like. Because I was playing a while back, I started having a bit more of a playthrough on that again. It's just a phone game. And it's free on the Google Play Store, so I guess it is on the Apple App Store. And you just you have a grid of rectangles, and you've got one color in one corner and another one in another, and you have to. Sometimes it's not rectangle. The overall shape is not necessarily square. Sometimes it's a ring, an outline sort of thing, and you have to get them in the right sequence to go from this color to that color, and it's the changing hues in between. And sometimes it's a grid where you so sometimes I go around in circles a little bit trying to find them. So yeah, I have had ones where I don't get any particular response either way, and I think that's on the version 1 of the game. So it's got 2 versions of the game. So people enjoyed it, so they did another one with more puzzles. I haven't played it as much recently because it's one that I have to play during daytime, because I use a red light filter on my phone at night, and it doesn't work very. The colours don't render quite the same when you have that on. It's a bit harder to tell them apart sometimes too. Anyway, so how are you all doing? How has work or whatever else you occupy yourself with when you're awake been going? I hope it's been kind to you. Has anyone had any particularly funny stories come up from events or actions or activities, or people just being downright idiots? Loads of bizarre work drama, roller coaster of life. None shareable here. Yeah, no, I totally understand that. That's fine. That's fine. It's more a reminder that for those who do have things that are shareable, if they want to say something, they're most welcome to. They've changed the phrasing. Trust this computer. I've got my iPad plugged in to charge through the hub. Trust this computer. Your settings and data will be accessible from this computer when connected. Trust or don't trust? Yes, I am going to trust it, but that's not the phrasing it's used every other time before now. And yet this iPad is not updating. So why is it it's telling me that with different words? I'm having a blast writing my book. Excellent. I love to hear that. That's wonderful news. That's really, really good. I just remember there's something I have to go and talk to the donkey people about to do with the book, because somebody's bought it from overseas and they want to they've given me some details to pass on. Yeah, and just ignore no, not ignore the lurking comment. You can lurk, but please make sure that we know you're not a bot by interacting with us from time to time. I know that's kind of not really what lurking is, but this is not really ASMR reading style anyway, or audiobook style reading, which is the low interaction version. Do they publish books with comics? Because Goriki said submitting it to Harlequin. Anyway, so it depends. Oops. Hang on, I'll just take this off and try not to catch my hair clip and pull it off. And turn that one off and make that invisible again when I find it. It's over here somewhere. Egg timer, that's the one. Oh, cushion. I'm going to put my cushion back on. No, I'm not going to put my cushion back on because Shoes redeemed what's all this about. The selector of irresolution. And what have we got this time? Is it another purple one? I am wearing one of my many purple shirts. I have at least a dozen of them, I'm sure. No, we're not having butterflies again. I would tell you to respin it, but it will make you wait. So you get to choose. Let me guess. You want Totally Not Goriki, don't you? Oh, she said it! I was being sarcastic. You don't have to. But if you want to, yeah, sure. There we go. Totally Not Goriki. Egg timer. Let's turn it back on again when I find it again. Start. Good. Now, where are we up to? Definitely a high five. Or 10. I was just thinking of getting my, of making webcams focus as our commutation does. Right. We are reading The Rover Boys on the Great Lakes by Arthur M. Winfield, first published in 1901, an American publisher, author, and also actually a pseudonym. Let's just keep this in focus here, folks. Yes, you have. Not Bob this time, but you. I was just thinking about it because I was doing something earlier on before we started, and I obviously wasn't looking at the camera. I was bending over doing something else, and I turned around and the camera had me well out of focus, like seriously out of focus. And it seems to be that this particular camera, or the software for it, is very strongly based on face detection for its focal thing, because it's a webcam, so I guess why wouldn't it be? And Shu says Alka Mutation is a great gleaming box of pizza. Yes, gobbles up Alk. Yeah, absolutely. Well done. You finally got the food one. And Goriki doesn't appear to be here to enjoy any of it. Yeah, so I was thinking about that, and then I made some reference, and it was like the whole, because it was high 5, and then I thought, no, let's go one better, high 10. Sorry, my brain just strings things from one thing to another. Welcome to the prequel of the stream. The actual content starts in 30 minutes. No, it's starting right now, actually. Yeah, we're a little bit longer than it normally is. Goriki, you can blame it on Palia, of course. Why not? He doesn't like the game. Hi, 10, everybody hit the ground. No, we're not doing that, mate. Good to have you here too, our commutation. Lovely to see you again. I wanted to like Palia, yeah. Who needs another tips video? Well, we could have one if you want. It's okay. My ADHD helps me keep up. Good, good. I love the fact that I can end up having 2 threads of conversation with the same person at the same time, where I'm alternating between the two. It's very confusing for some people though, but I play with it because sometimes I'm like, but we're just talking about that, and I'll specifically refer to the thing that they had most recently said when they go back to something that we were talking about quite a while ago, not just the last little bit of conversation. Hassling them. Anyway, so here we go. We are reading chapter 8 of the Rover Boys on the Great Lakes. It's a superpower when you both hit that. Oh, it is. And lots of fun. It makes for some really rapid fire conversations and you can cover so much stuff. So on the lake again, and we had Dick had been kidnapped and the others were trying to find him? Peterson, cried Tom in dismay. Can he be dead? Came from Sam. Then he bent over the lumberman. Oh, because Peterson was trying to help them. Peterson was the guy who'd actually been on the logs with Dick. But when the other boat pulled Dick out of the water, Peterson wasn't there. Or he was? I don't know. I can't remember. So what happened was Shu had redeemed the, what was it called that time? The selector of a resolution, and I said, what? And it spun and gave her what we'd already had, which was butterflies. And I said, I'd get you to spin again, except that it's got a cooldown on it. So you can choose instead. And then me being sarcastic says, I know, she wants totally not Goriki, when in actual fact I was expecting that she was going to ask for top knots because that is her favourite. Because I mean they're cute and they're purple. But she actually said, as I was saying it, totally not Goriki, so that's what we've got. Just joined, yeah, as it was happening, that's the one. Right, so we'll get on with the story now. Lots of fun. I'm loving you guys having fun. Please keep having fun. And if you are someone who is here for the stories, whether it is here now, watching the VOD on Twitch, or you're watching it on YouTube, please enjoy our silliness, our fun, our laughter. Join in. And if you want to be part of that sort of thing, come over to my Twitch channel and be here when it's all happening live and join in. It's lots of fun. If you are someone who wants an audiobook, please go and find somebody who reads in that style, because I'm not changing what I'm doing because it's too much fun. Why do stuff that's not fun? I mean, I enjoy listening to audiobooks, but me reading in an audiobook style, that just doesn't work. It's boring. Nobody wants that. Everybody wants me. Only 3 people can get me. Literally the moment I joined and then you mentioned me. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Right. Oops. I'm letting you get deafened by the timer. Actually, no, it's not. It's not very loud, is it? Is that better? Is that a better volume for you? Are you getting a fright when it comes on? Because that's what that was originally meant to be for, even though I'm not wearing my headphones to know. Turn that one off visually, and we shall carry on. Snatches Goriki and a beard hug. Good, that's the way. Just what's needed. I am going to put my cushion on my seat now, though. Hold off on any more redeems for a while on the headbands, just because the cushion on the seat is a lot more comfortable. Yes, I know we've got an ad break, but that's okay. Licks your fingers and sticks it to your sizzle. Right, yeah, I'll let you guys get on with it. So Dick had been kidnapped and put at the sanitarium that was being run by the slightly dodgy running the chap who ran it, and is now being removed, put onto another boat to go somewhere else, and we don't know where. And the boys the other boys and Peterson were looking for him, but hadn't actually managed, the person who'd kidnapped him, but hadn't managed to actually track them down. And Peterson was looking in one direction down at the docks, and they were looking at the other, and they come around the corner, and there's Peterson lying knocked out. Okay, I have to leave now. Much love to you all. No worries, our communication. So lovely to have you here. Really, really enjoy yourself. Oh, that's a command that doesn't work here. That emote, fire speed. I got to see it on screen. It goes here, but it doesn't go in my chat. Interesting. I have to find out where that one originally comes from and why it's not allowed to work here. Right. We will carry on. Find out what's happening. So good to see him again. Peterson, cried Tom in dismay. Can he be dead? Came from Sam. So Tom's the middle brother and Sam's the youngest. Then he bent over the lumberman. No, he still lives, but he has been treated most shamefully. I think what happens... Oh, it's a BTTV. Yeah, that makes sense. So I've got a bunch of the emotes, the external emotes turned off for anyone who's wondering. I have a bunch of the external emotes turned off on my channel just because I have seen too many people being bullied by them specifically. I do know that they're a great way for people to have access to emotes that they have put up there to be hosted there on any of those different services. And so therefore people who were not yet affiliate could still have emotes. Or if you are affiliate, you could have more than just the standard number of emotes that were available. But yeah, in this space here, because of the sort of people who have been bullied in that manner, being likely to hang out here because it's a safe space, I just don't want that sort of thing going on, because I don't think that's appropriate. So I will actually need to check to see if there's a way to stop them coming through. I mean, it's fine on those ones, what's come through reasonably recently. We haven't had any problems. But for future proofing, I do think it would be a good idea to check and find out if there's a way to make sure that it's not just Twitch, but also through the different things like the chat handler and things like that it doesn't go through. Right, we shall carry on. Actually, those ones are all through Stream Elements that they're handled. That's probably why. That's probably where it's coming through. Let's carry on with this. This must be some more of Arnold Baxter's work. Now, what I was going to say before was, no, he still lives, but he has been treated most shamefully. Obviously, the author has taken a break from what they were doing, has come back to writing again, refreshed their memory with where they were up to, had a look through the series Bible, and one of the things that caught their eye was, let's use complex language so that the young people who are reading are being educated by our books, so that people who object to our books have one less objection that they can make. We are not dumbing the kids down. No, he still lives, but he has been treated most shamefully. Now, who says that? Really? In real life? You come round the corner and there's a guy lying apparently dead on the ground, and you say, no, he still lives. Really? He has been treated most shamefully. I would expect that someone's maiden great-great aunt coming across them, one who's terribly upset about this situation and has their little lace-trimmed kerchief out, and they're just sort of like making sure that they don't get the horrible smells of the fish down by the wharves, and they're just patting their nose, and they're a little bit worried about it all. Indeed, no, he still lives, but he has been treated most shamefully. But this is Sam, this is the youngest brother. Shouldn't be like that. Anyway, let's carry on. This must be some more of Arnold Baxter's work, or else the work of some footpad. Both boys knelt over the prostrate form of the lumberman. the guy who was lying down on the ground because he was unconscious, and did what they could to restore him to his senses, to wake him up. But in this, they were partly successful. Don't hit me again. Please don't hit me. No, you wouldn't say, don't hit me again. Please don't hit me, if the person is just coming around. It'd be, don't. No. You don't use lots of words. We've found this before. You're safe, said the man moaned over and over again. You're safe, said Tom, but Peterson paid no attention and only begged them not to hit him, because he's still coming to. Let's carry him to the Swallow, suggested Sam, and between them they did so. What's this? Asked Alec Pop in astonishment. He's the cook. He's our friend and he's been struck down, answered Tom. Get some water in a basin and a little liquor. We don't do that these days. If someone's been unconscious, you don't give them any liquor. If someone's cold, you don't give them any liquor, because what it does is it takes the blood away from the core of the body and takes it out to the extremities when you need it to stay in the core of the body, like if someone's really cold from exposure and things like that. There's lots of medical reasons you don't. Anyway, when the man returned with the articles mentioned, with the stuff, both boys washed the wounded man's head and bound it up with a towel. Then Tom administered a few spoonfuls of liquor. This seemed to give Peterson some strength, because that's what we used to do in the old days. But he did not fully recover for some hours. Follow the Peacock, were his first rational words. Follow the schooner Peacock. Schooner. There's that word. We finally got it. Let's all have a drink. Because our key words are schooner and boat. The Peacock? Repeated Tom. Why should we follow her? Your brother is on board. And having spoken thus, the lumberman sank again into semi-unconsciousness. Yeah, the words are too complicated for someone in that state of mind. Can he be telling the truth, or is he out of his head? Questioned Sam. I'm sure I don't know, Sam. It would be the most recent, uppermost thought in someone's mind. Brains that have been injured don't usually leap to having to work to imagine something. They provide stuff that's already there. I'm sure I don't know, Sam. Perhaps we'd better look around for the schooner he mentioned. Schooner? Finally getting into drinking in this book. It's been a fairly dry book up till now, in terms of us. All right, I'll do so. You stay here with Alec. Hadn't I better go with you? Or perhaps we'd better look around. I'll do so, said Tom. Hadn't I better go with you? No, I'll keep my eyes open, concluded Tom, and hurried away. We've just rescued a man who was hit, who was beaten up, who was begging them to not hit him again, and you're deciding, no, it's okay, I'll go on my own. Really? I think I'll find that brick wall again. Have you got yours ready? Right. I don't know if that's going to stand up anywhere. We'll see if we can get it to. You can't quite see that. That'll do. It was now dawn, and the early workers were just getting to their employment. Getting to work. So soon Tom met a couple of watchmen and hailed them. I'm looking for the schooner Peacock, said he. Do you know anything of the craft? Sure, and that's Gus Langless's boat, said one of the watchmen. She's lying at the end of Bassoon's Wharf over yonder. Thank you, and Tom started away. The wharf mentioned was a long one, and it took some time for the youth to reach the outer end. As he ran, he saw a boat in the distance moving away with all sails set. Of course, he could not make out her name, but he saw that she was schooner rigged and felt certain she must be the craft for which he was searching. Now, a schooner has two masts, and the front mast is shorter than the back mast. I think that's a schooner. At the end of the pier he met a dockhand who had been resting in a nearby shed. "Is that boat the Peacock?" he asked. "Yes, sir." "Do you know anything of the people on board?" "I do not." "Has she a cargo?" "I believe not." "You didn't see anybody going on her?" "Hold up. Yes, I did. A young fellow with a man." "Was the young fellow in a feeble state?" "He seemed to be." "Thank you." Tom turned away with something of a groan. Dick must be on board of that craft along with the Baxters. Oh, what luck we're having now. What ought I to do next? His wisest move would have been to have informed the authorities. You think? But Tom was too much upset mentally to think about it. "Well, actually, no, I'm upset physically. My left foot is really upset about this." Weird phrasing. I'm so glad that Edward Stratemeyer took the ideas he came up with and handed them off to other writers for the other books. Tom was too much upset mentally to think of that. With all speed he returned to the Swallow. "The Peacock has sailed," he cried. "We must follow her." "You are certain?" queried Sam. "No, I came back here to lie to you when you're all upset about something. Yes, I saw her in the distance." Sorry, don't believe that other line was in the book. "Come, let us get after her before it's too late." As Luke Peterson was now doing fairly well, all of the others ran on deck, and soon the Swallow was in pursuit of the schooner. No, in this case, in this book, a schooner is not a measure of beer in a particular glass. At first, but little could be seen of the Peacock, but when the sun came up they saw her plainly heading toward the northwest. "We must keep her in sight," said Tom. "Yes, but supposing the Baxters are on board, how can we capture them?" came from Sam. "We are but 3 or 4 at the most, counting Peterson, while that craft must carry a crew of 5 or 6. "We can hail some other boat to help us." "This is why we should have spoken to the authorities." "The main thing is to not lose track of the rascals." The breeze was all that could be desired, and once the shore was left behind they kept the Peacock in sight with ease, but try their best they gained but little on the larger boat. As there was now nothing to do but to let the yacht do her best, Tom left Sam at the wheel and turned his attention to Peterson. The lumberman was now able to sit up, although very weak. "I discovered Arnold Baxter and tracked him to the schooner's dock," he said. "His son came to the dock, and from what they said, I'm sure your brother is on the craft. Then they discovered me, and the father struck me down with the butt of a pistol he carried. After that, all was blank until I found myself here." "You can be thankful you weren't killed." "I suppose so. I shall not rest until that villain is brought to justice. But what are you up to now, lad?" "We are in pursuit of the Peacock." "On the lake or up the river?" "On the lake." "Can you keep her in sight?" "So far we seem to be holding our own." "Good. I'd like to go on deck and help you, but I feel kind of strange-like in the legs." "Better keep quiet for the present. We may need you later on." "Got any firearms on board?" "Yes, a gun and 2 pistols. You may want 'em afore you get through with that crowd. They are bad ones." "We know them thoroughly, Mr. Peterson. We have been acquainted with them for years." And then Tom told of how Dan Baxter had been the bully at Putnam Hall, and how he had run away to join his rascally father, and of how Arnold Baxter had been Mr. Rover's enemy since the days of early mining in the West. I don't think it was that early. Don't think his dad's that old. "Of course they were carrying off your brother for a purpose," said the lumberman. "Like as not they'll try to hit your father through him." "I presume that's the game." The morning wore away slowly, but as the sun mounted higher, the breeze gradually died down. The Peacock was the first to feel the going down of the wind, and slowly but surely the Swallow crept closer to the schooner. But at last both vessels came to a standstill, about 1/4 of a mile apart. "Now what's to do?" questioned Sam dismally. "I reckon we can whistle for a breeze," returned his brother. Whistling won't do us any good. I've been wondering if we could not do some rowing in the small boat. Hurrah, just the thing. There was a small rowboat stored away on board the Swallow, and this was now brought forth along with 2 pairs of oars. Gonna row her over, are you? Observed Alec Pop. Reckon you better be careful what you do. We shall go armed, answered Tom. Yeah, but it's not a shield or a suit of armour. I'm pretty sure you don't have a bulletproof vest on, because I'm pretty sure that the other guys have got weaponry, since Peterson was hit over the head with the butt of a pistol. The boys soon had the rowboat floating on the lake, and they leapt in, each with a pair of oars and with a pistol stowed away in his pocket. From the start, those on board of the Peacock had been afraid that the yacht was following them, and now they were certain of it. 2 boys putting off on a rowboat, announced Captain Langless. They are Tom and Sam Rover, answered Arnold Baxter after a brief survey through a marine glass. That would be a telescope. The compacting ones. The sort that we get the word to telescope something from. Because it was from a ship's telescope. Not the things we look at the moon and the stars with now, or birds in the distance, but the ones that condense down to a shorter tube. It's a series of tubes inside each other. That was a sea captain's telescope, the sort we see in movies for pirates. How did they get to know enough to follow this craft? I'm sure I don't know, but those Rover boys are slick and always were. What will you do when they come up? Warn 'em off. I've got an idea, Dad, came from Dan. Well, why not get out of sight and let Captain Langless invite them on board to look for Dick, and then we can bag him and put him with Dick? By Jove, that's a scheme, exclaimed the rascally parent. Langless, will you do it? Of course, we'll have to get out of sight until the proper moment arrives. But if you bag him, what of those left on the Swallow? Questioned the captain. There's only one man, a Negro. He doesn't amount to anything. Because that's what people thought in those days. There may be more, 1 or 2 officers of the law. Arnold Baxter used his glass again. I see nobody but that guy. If there were officers at hand, I'm sure they would have come along in that rowboat. And this is why Peterson stayed below. I guess you're right about that. If we capture the boys, he won't dare come follow us alone, and it may be that we can capture him too, went on Arnold Baxter. By this time the rowboat was drawing closer, and Arnold Baxter and Dan stepped out of sight behind the forecastle of the schooner. Forecastle's it's like a little wee building bit where the stairs to go down are, usually, for this usage. It's also the front part of the boat in terms of what's inside. A few additional words passed between Captain Langless and the Baxters, and then the owner of the Peacock awaited the coming of our friends, who were now almost alongside, never suspecting the trap which was set for them, which they should have done, because it's the Baxters. Chapter 9, Caught in a Trap. And I suddenly have a song in my head. Do you see anything of the Baxters? Asked Sam when the rowboat was within 100 feet of the schooner. I thought I did before, but I don't see them now, answered Tom. Rowboat ahoy! Shouted Captain Langless. I keep going to read Legolas. Langless. What brings you? I reckon you know well enough, Tom shouted back. We're after Dick Rover. Dick Rover? Who's he? Your prisoner. Our prisoner? The owner of the Peacock put on a look of surprise. Really, you're talking in riddles. I don't think so. Where are Arnold Baxter and his son Dan? Don't know anyone by that name. Which a normal response would have been, who? When someone gives you a negative response to a question about is so-and-so there, and you're going and they are trying to deny that they're there, but they start with complex language, doubt what they're saying, unless they're autistic. Some autistics do it just because conciseness. But your average person does not start with complex language if it's genuine. Is so-and-so there? If they genuinely aren't there or they don't know anything about them, they'll say, who? Who are you talking about? Who's that? Not, don't know anybody by that name. They went on board your boat, put in Sam. You must be mistaken. Too complex. The language is too complex. This is defensive language. This is not honest language. They went, you must be mistaken, Captain Langlis turned to his mate. Find any stowaways on board? Nary a one, was the mate's answer. Just came up from the hold too. This talk perplexed Tom and Sam not a little. Like, hello? They've never heard of anyone ever lying before? They were puzzled because the guy running the boat is saying that the bad guys aren't on board. How could this be? Because everybody speaks with absolute truth unless they're a real baddie that we already know. You know what to do. You can bash your head against a brick wall if you want. Was it possible Luke Peterson had made some mistake? We have it on pretty good authority that the Baxters are on board your boat and that Dick Rover is aboard too, said Sam. That's all a riddle to me, answered Captain Langlis. We are not in the business of carrying prisoners. We're bound for Sandusky on a cargo of flour, for a cargo of flour. This talk completely nonplussed the boys, and they held a whispered conversation. I don't believe him, said Sam. No more do I, but what shall we do about it? Sure, I don't know. You can come on board and look around if you wish, called out the owner of the schooner. Sorry, I just whacked the microphone. I want you to satisfy yourself that you're mistaken. Shall we go? That seems... I want you to satisfy yourself that you're mistaken? Trying too hard. Shall we go? Whispered Tom. It may be a trap. He seems honest enough. Now, you've got to give it to Sam. He is significantly younger than the other brothers, Dick and Tom. So he's allowed to be a little bit less aware of what people are like. Sounds like prepare to be wrong. Definitely. Supposing I go and you stay in the rowboat, then if anything happens, you can call on Alec and Peterson for help. So it was arranged, and in a minute more, Tom was climbing up the ladder, which had been thrown over the Peacock's side. Is the other young fellow coming? Asked the captain, who did not fancy this move. No. The captain scowled, but said no more. Once on deck, Tom looked around him curiously and then moved toward the companionway leading to the cabin. He felt instinctively that he was in a dangerous position. As he crossed the deck, several ill-appearing sailors gazed at him curiously. They looked like baddies. In older language, it would have been ill-advised. Or something else that's very similar than that. But ill-appearing is not a modern phrase. It's a bit awkward. It's like they've taken an old phrase and they've tried to modernize it, and it just doesn't sit. Gazed at him curiously but said nothing, being under strict orders from the captain to remain silent in the presence of the stranger. The cabin of the Peacock was a small affair considering the general size of the schooner, because she's a freight boat. So yeah, she's not going to have a lot of room in the crew quarters or the captain's quarters. Schooner. You guys better be drinking. I'm not seeing any responses. Come on. Hydrating. Was a small affair considering the general size of the schooner and contained but little in the shape of furniture. What about things that were in the colour of furniture? What about things that were in the scent of furniture? Sorry, I just find some of the language usage just so weird that it distracts me from the flow of the story. Obviously, I hope you can have a laugh about it with me instead of getting annoyed because I'm getting distracted. But we'll carry on reading. Dick had been removed long before, so the apartment was empty of human occupants when Tom entered. What other occupants are there then? How I want to know. Empty of occupants, yes, empty of human occupants, says there are other creatures there, which tells us we need to be asking about them. Language, people. Nobody here, he murmured as he gazed around. What foolishness to come anyway. The Baxters could easily hide on me if they wanted to. He was about to leave the cabin when a form darkened the companionway and Arnold Baxter appeared. Uh-oh. Silence, commanded the man and pointed a pistol at Tom's head. But he wasn't talking to anyone. The sight of the rascal startled the youth, and the look on Baxter's face caused him to shiver. So you are here after all, he managed to say. Silence, repeated Arnold Baxter, unless you want to be shot. Where's my brother Dick? Before Arnold Baxter could reply, Dan put in an appearance carrying a pair of handcuffs. Now we'll get square with you, Tom Rover, said the bully harshly. What do you intend to do? Make you a prisoner. Hold out your hands. And if I refuse, you won't refuse, put in Arnold Baxter, and lowering his pistol, he leapt behind Tom and caught him by the arms. At the same time, Dan attacked the lad in front, and poor Tom was soon handcuffed. Then he was led out of the cabin by a rear way. A door was opened, and he was thrust into the blackness of the hold. But ere this was accomplished, he let out one long, loud cry for help, which reached Sam's ears quite plainly. "Aye, what are you doing to my brother?" shouted the younger Rover. He'd brought the rowboat up close alongside the schooner. "Bad move, Sam. You were told that you had to go and get help if anything went wrong." "I don't know what's up," answered the mate of the Peacock. "Better come aboard and see." "He's fallen down the hatchway," cried Captain Langlis. "Poor chap, he's hurt himself quite badly," and he disappeared as if going to Tom's assistance. If Sam had been in a quandary before, he was doubly so now. Had Tom really fallen, or had he been attacked? "I can't leave him alone," he thought, and without further hesitation leapt up the side of the schooner with the agility of a cat. Did he take the dinghy painter? The rope that you tie the boat on with. A schooner. So it stays attached. It was a fatal movement, for scarcely had he reached the deck when he was pounced upon by Captain Langlis and held fast until Arnold Baxter appeared. "Let me go!" cried Sam, but his protest proved of no avail. A lively scuffle followed, but the lad was no match for the men, and in the end he found himself handcuffed and thrown into the hold beside Tom. They have really easy access to handcuffs back then. In the not too far in the past, they were quite hard to get, unless you knew certain shops. Time for the picker of Shilly Shally. Thank you, Koriki. So, I'm surprised at how easy to get they are in this story. They're using two different pairs of handcuffs, and apparently there's possibly another pair that's holding Dick. I don't know. Let's get mouse blues for this redemption for Goriki. Thank you. I could start the timer after the ads, I suppose. Just checking. I thought there was something else that was going on. Handcuffs of 1901 were probably pretty big. Yeah, they'd be, and you wouldn't break out of them that easily. If they're the ones I think they are, they're kind of a horseshoe shape with a bar across the bottom, which a pin goes through. Or the pin was the bar, I don't know. But yeah, quite not out of toughened steel like we have these days, but then they didn't have easy access to them for everybody anyway. They must have pinched them off some copper policeman. Sorry. Stolen goods. coffee. No, not the same sentence. We've changed subject already. This is ADHD. Right. And I'm also going to have some of my blueberry ramune. Oh, they haven't got the unscrewable caps on them again like they did that other time. I did like that. That was quite cool. It made a lot of sense because of the fact that in Japan there's a lot more separation of recyclables into different types of materials when they get collected, which is very sensible. A lively scuffle followed, but the lad was... Oh, let's turn on the egg timer. Sorry, forgot that. I talked about it before and then I forgot it, obviously. A lively scuffle followed, but the lad was no match for the men, and in the end he found himself handcuffed and thrown into the hold beside Tom. Still haven't found Dick. Tie the rowboat fast to the stern, ordered Arnold Baxter, and this was done. The going down of the wind was only temporary, and now a slight breeze sprang up. "We're in luck," said the captain of the schooner. "We must keep away from the yacht," returned Arnold Baxter. Soon the schooner's sails... we've got schooner twice, were filling, and she continued on her course, dragging the small boat behind her. Alec Pop saw the movement and grew much perplexed. So we've got the captain of the schooner, and soon the schooner sails. We're definitely hooking into this water bottle today. Alec Pop saw the movement and grew much perplexed. "That don't look right to me, nohow," he muttered. "'Pears like there was being... "'Pears like da was been tuck along some way." "It appears like they are being taken along somehow, some way, I think." Most of the time I've been able to translate on the fly. That was a bit weird. Alec was not much of a sailor, but he had been out enough to know how to handle the yacht under ordinary circumstances, and now he did his best to follow the Peacock. Pic posted in Rover Boys. Thank you. I do appreciate that. For the handcuffs. Yes. Good. I'm looking at the wrong one. I'm looking at Tom Swift at the moment. Rover Boys. There it is. Because that was the last one. Yes, that shape. Exactly. So if you want to know what the handcuffs would have been like that they were using, there's a picture that Goriki has posted in the Rover Boys channel under the books section of the server. And I need to I'm dragging it up to the very top of the list now. Rover Boys is now at the very top of the list. Under books. Style was the main kind from 1870 something to sometime in the 1920s. There you go. That's it. That makes so much sense. I do remember having seen that style probably because of period dramas done by the BBC or any of the other production companies over there. They tend to use items from the actual period. So they do look familiar. And I shall thank you for finding that, Koriki. That's really appreciated. Alec was not much of a sailor, but he'd been out enough to know how to handle the yacht under ordinary circumstances, and now he did his best to follow the Peacock. With the glass, the telescope, he watched eagerly for the reappearance of Sam and Tom, and his face became a study when fully half an hour passed and they failed to show themselves. "They're in trouble, sure," he told himself. "Now what is this here man going to do?" meaning himself. He lashed the wheel fast and sought advice from Luke Peterson, who was feeling stronger every minute, the burly lumberman, shook his head dubiously. In trouble for certain, was his comment. Didn't hear any pistol shots, did you? Nah, didn't hear nothing, sir. They wouldn't remain on board of that craft of their own free will. Don't expect they would, sir. The question is, what's to do? And Alex scratched his head thoughtfully. I don't know, excepting to keep the schooner in sight if possible and see if something doesn't turn up. If you sight a steamer or a steam tug, let me know and I'll try to get help. Because he knows the guys who work the power boats on the lake, the steamers and the tugs. So it was arranged, and Alec returned to the wheel. The Swallow was going along smoothly, and he did what he could to make the sails draw as much as possible. Peterson now discovered the medicine chest of the yacht, and from this got another dose of liquor, which afforded him the temporary strength of which he was in so much need, because it was believed that that's what it would do for you. In actual fact, all it does is it makes you believe that it has done so. The coming of night found the two vessels far out upon the waters of Lake Erie, and nearly half a mile apart. Peterson now came on deck to keep an eye on things while Alec prepared supper. It promised to remain clear, but as there would be no moon, Peterson was afraid they would lose sight of the Peacock in the gathering darkness. Supper was soon served, the lumberman eating first, and then Alec cleared away the few dishes and tidied up generally. Alec was much downcast. First it was Dick, and now it's the whole damn three of them, he remarked. No, it doesn't actually say damn. And now it am the D. It am D. D am D. It is the whole three of them, he remarked. I'm afraid there's gonna be a bad ending to this year trip. We will have to take what comes, answered Peterson. And Peterson possibly actually has a Scandinavian accent if he was a real person in real life. Oh, look, did you notice I'm not wearing my reading glasses? I've been wearing them for gaming. It's been helping a lot, especially reading tiny little writing on the screen. We'll have to take what comes, answered Peterson, but I have taken a fancy to those boys and I'll stick by you to the end. So he admires them, and so he's going to help with trying to rescue them. Slowly the darkness of night settled over the waters of the lake, and with the going down of the sun, the stars came forth, one after another. During the last few hours, several sails had been seen at a distance, but none had come close enough to be hailed. We're going to lose her in the darkness, after all, announced the lumberman at about 8 o'clock. It's hard for me to see her even now. Half an hour later, the Peacock disappeared in the gloom, and the chase, for the time being, came to an end. Chapter 10. The Escape from the Hold. Sam, is that you? Yes. We're trapped. It looks like it, or rather it feels like it. I can't see a thing. Nor do I. Did you find out anything about Dick? No. A groan came from the opposite end of the hold. Oh, it's a headbands and ears day today too. Time for the extractor of deciding. And what are we going to have? Did it actually give us a gift that time or not? Faux lavender. Good colour choice. Good choice. There you go. Make it stand up a little bit more, even though it's a little bit messy. Right. Thank you. It's a Lodabow shirt. Nice one. Well done. Here I am. How in the world did you get here? Dick, after all, ejaculated Tom, and there was a slight trace of joy in his tone. Slight? They should have been ecstatic. Are you okay, old man? Now, it's the early days of using the phrase okay, because it's written capital O, full stop, space, capital K, full stop. Not these days. So you notice it a lot more. Hardly. They dosed me with drugs until my mind is topsy-turvy. I'm glad you're alive, came from Sam. Where are you? Here, lying on a couple of boxes. Look out how you move about or you may hurt yourselves. Handcuffed as they were, Tom and Sam felt their way through the dark hold until they reached their elder brother's side. They grasped his hands warmly. Now, all this time, I have to admit, all this time they've been talking about the boys being handcuffed. My brain has been supplying the picture of modern handcuff usage where the person's hands are behind them. They didn't do that back then. The handcuffs were in front. So you still had more mobility. Handcuffed as they were, Tom and Sam felt their way along through the dark hold, that's the storage space on the boat, until they reached their elder brother's side. They grasped his hands warmly. I'm glad we're together again, even if we are prisoners, remarked Tom, and this was his younger brother's sentiment too. How did you get here? Asked Dick, and each told his story from beginning to end. And then the elder Rover had to relate his own adventures. I knew that old doctor wasn't telling the truth, burst out Tom. Oh, but won't have an account to settle with all of those chaps if ever we get out of this scrape. Don't let us hurrah until we're out of the woods, added Dick soberly. We're in the hands of a desperate gang, to my way of reasoning. The Baxters are certainly bad enough. And any boat captain who would go into this game with them is probably just as bad. Whom did you leave on the yacht? Alec and the lumberman who was on the raft with you. I wonder if they'll follow this schooner. No one could answer this question, and for several minutes there was a silence. During that time they heard heavy footsteps cross and recross the deck, but that was all. Presently the schooner began to rock slightly. The wind is coming up, said Tom. We're moving ahead again. That's bad for us, if the schooner manages to run away from the yacht, rejoined Dick. Soon the motion of the Peacock showed that the schooner was bowling along rapidly. This is one of the words that you have to teach the young boys who read the books in this book. Use it as many times as you can. If the schooner's a rockin', call the police. Yeah, definitely. They heard the creaking of the tackle as additional sails were hoisted and felt certain that the craft was making the best run at her command. The hold had not been opened up for a long time. Consequently, the air was foul as well as stifling from the heat. I'd give something for fresh air, said Sam. How is it with you, Dick? I want fresh air and a drink of water, said I'm as dry as a bale of cotton. Haven't they given you anything since you came on board? Asked Tom. Not a thing. The inhuman wretches! Oh, I wish I had Dan Baxter here. I'd punch his head good for him. Ditto the head of his rascally father, returned Dick. I would like to know just where they intend to take me, or rather, all of us. Now, they certainly can't expect to keep us on board this craft. Perhaps they'll ship us to Canada. That's where you send all the bad people that the bad people have caught. You send them to Canada. No! Somebody better go and warn our commutation. Hardly, since they couldn't land on the Canadian shore without an inspection of the vessel. There's a thought. But maybe just drop them over the side near the shore, if you are not going ashore. They'll make it ashore or drown. If you're the bad guy, it doesn't really matter either way, does it? At least they know about the inspection, because yes, it does happen still. They have some plan up their sleeve, that's certain. Slowly the hours wore away until all sounds on deck ceased, and they knew it must be well along in the night. Still the schooner kept on her course. All of the boys had been working at their bonds, but without success. They're not ropes, you know. They wished they had a light, but neither Sam nor Tom had a match, and Dick's pockets were entirely bare. Tom and Sam were likewise minus their pistols, Arnold Baxter having taken the weapons away before placing them in the hold. How peculiar that was in terms of choice. The night proved to be a truly horrible one for the boys, for the hold was overrun with rats, who became altogether too familiar. At first, one of the pests ran over Tom's legs. Yuck. Not my idea of fun. Not at all. Ships that used to carry foodstuffs of various sorts would often get rats, because free food. "A rat!" he cried. "Hi, scat!" And the frisky rodent scampered off, but speedily returned, followed by several others. After that they had a lively time of it for half an hour, when the rats left them as suddenly as they'd appeared. Okay. Foreshadowing? But what? The storm and their various adventures had tired the boys out, and soon, in spite of the surroundings, one after another fell into a light doze. The sleep did all of them good, especially Dick, who declared on awakening that he felt almost as well as ever. "Only I'm as hungry as a bear," he added. "Ditto myself," came from Tom. "I move we try to break out of this dingy hole." Not dingy, dingy. "All right, but where shall we break to?" put in Sam. "I can't see much more than I could last night." The matter was talked over, and presently they scattered to feel along the ribbed walls of the hold, because the ship is made by having ribs of timber that come down, and then the planks are put over the outside. And that's usually what they're feeling along the edges of, is the ribbed timber. And then probably if there's a wall that goes through to another part of the boat, if the other part is more living quarters, they'll have smooth boards on that side, and then the side that's just the storage space, they don't worry about it, so they just, once again, you get these vertical timbers, probably. For a long time, nobody felt anything of importance, but at last Sam let out a soft cry. "I found something of a door." "Good for you," answered Tom. "Can you open it?" "No, there seems to be a bar or something on the other side." The others rejoined the youngest Rover and made out the door quite plainly, for there was a broad crack at the top and at the side opposite the hinges. There was a bar, true enough. "If we had something that we could slip into that crack, we might move the bar," observed Dick. "I slipped on a sheet of tin a while ago," said Tom. "Perhaps I can find that." Just as well he didn't slice his leg or his knee against the edge of it. That would have been nasty. His hunt was successful, and soon they had the tin in the crack under the bar. The latter gave way with ease, and then they pulled the door open. Beyond was the passageway leading to the cabin. "Now, what's the next movement?" whispered Sam. "Let's try to arm ourselves first of all," answered Dick. "Then if we're cornered again," their hands are still handcuffed, "then if we're cornered again, we may be able to make some kind of favourable terms." He tiptoed his way into the cabin and found it deserted. On the table rested the remains of a breakfast served to several people, and he picked up half a loaf of bread and put it in the pocket of his jacket. Several boiled eggs followed. On one of the walls of the cabin hung 2 old-fashioned swords and a brace of pistols. Without hesitation he took all the weapons and returned them to his brothers. "Here are pistols and swords and something to eat," he said. "There seems to be nobody around, so you can come into the cabin if you wish." Normally, if it's a sailing vessel and there is a sword and a brace of pistols on the wall, they are going to be muzzle-loading pistols, which means you need a powder horn and patches and shot or ball and a mini rod to tamp it down with. A brace of pistols is a pair, by the way. Like a brace of pigeons is 2 pigeons. Just the fact that they're talking about them being on the wall sounds like they're on display. This is not normal usage. Maybe they're already loaded. If you do have an already loaded pistol, that means you're going to be a single shot from each, if you haven't got the other gear. I don't know if they're modern pistols or not. They haven't said. It's confusing. The subtitles really struggled with the pistols, but what all the terminology I was using. I wouldn't be surprised. There seems to be nobody around, so you can come into the cabin if you wish. All entered the compartment. Both water and a little coffee were handy, and they made a hasty repast. For some reason, pigeons came up a lot. Pigeons! That's why you got pistols, so you can shoot them. That coffee must have been spiked. Must have been. I don't want to know. Oh my goodness. While eating, Tom hunted around the room and also looked into an adjoining stateroom. In the latter place, he found a bunch of keys on a nail. Only one of them fits these handcuffs, he murmured, and they tried the keys without delay. One did fit, and in a few seconds they were free of their fetters. Now lay on, Macduff, quoted Tom it's lead on, isn't it? As he swung aloft one of the swords. We'll give them a warm reception, eh? We'll do nothing of the kind, replied Dick hastily. In this case, silence is the better part of valour. We'll lay low until the time comes to make a move. What? Do you mean go back to the hold? Asked Sam. We may as well for the present. It is broad daylight now. Perhaps we can escape at night. Do you suppose they took our rowboat along? Came from Tom. I shouldn't wonder. We can... Hist! They did. They actually said hist. Who says hist? That's a Shakespearean term. Oh my goodness. Hist! Somebody is coming. Dick was right. Captain Langless was descending the companionway. On tiptoes, the three boys hurried to the door leading to the hold. As they flung it back, they found themselves confronted by Arnold Baxter and Dan. Too late to wait until tonight now, isn't it? Chapter 11, Gaining a Point. The sudden turn of affairs chagrined the Rover Boys greatly. Chagrined. Word. Distress of mind caused by the failure of aims and plans, want of appreciation, mistakes, etc., vexation or something. To bother, to vex, to mortify. Yeah, okay. That's what the word chagrin means. I've used it a bit in this story already. None of them knew what to say. Arnold, Baxter and Dan grinned at the trio sarcastically. Sarcasm is words and tone. Grinned sarcastically. And the bully was the first to break the silence. Didn't get away that time, did you? He sneered. So there they are, so they are here, came from Captain Langless, who had just stepped into the cabin, and without the handcuffs too. Let us alone, cried Tom hotly. If you touch me again, I'll shoot somebody. And so speaking, he raised one of the pistols taken from the cabin wall. His aim was at Dan, and the bully fell back with a cry of terror, for, as old readers know, Dan was a coward at heart. Don't shoot, he faltered. Don't! My pistols! Burst out the captain of the Peacock in a rage. Hand those weapons over to me, do you hear? They're his collector's items. Don't touch my pistols! He took several steps forward when Dick brought him to a halt by raising one of the swords. It was a dramatic scene of intense interest to all concerned. Arnold Baxter gazed at the armed youths in alarm, and Captain Langless grated his teeth. I thought it was gritted his teeth. This is foolishness, said the owner of the schooner, after a painful pause. If you try to fight, you'll only get into worse trouble. We are all told 10-3, and the best thing you can do is throw down those arms and submit. We won't submit, came from Sam, with a boldness which was astonishing in one of his years. His stirring adventures in Africa and in the West accounted for much of this valour. "We are not going to remain on this vessel," said Dick, "and if you try to detain us further, somebody will get hurt." "You scamp!" fumed Arnold Baxter, and looked at the elder Rover as if to annihilate him with a glance. But Dick remained undaunted, and gradually Arnold Baxter fell back a few steps. It must be confessed that the Rover boys felt far from comfortable. Here were two of the enemy on one side and one on the other, cutting off their escape in both directions. More than this, Captain Langless now raised his voice, and presently several rough-looking sailors came rushing into the cabin. "Leave the hold!" cried the owner of the schooner to the Baxters. "I reckon I know how to manage them." So he's telling everybody else to get out of the hold. Arnold Baxter understood and at once took his son by the arm. The pair had come down into the hold by means of a ladder lowered through the forward hatchway. Now they ran for the ladder, mounted and drew it up after them. Then the hatch was closed down as before. In the meantime, Captain Langless whispered to one of his sailors, and the tar, nickname for a sailor, ran to one of the staterooms and returned with an old-fashioned 7-shooter, fully 1.5 feet long. "Is he running antique guns?" "It's sounding like it. He's got a business where he's smuggling antique weaponry." The description of all of the things that he's got. "Now get back there," ordered the owner of the schooner. "I won't have any more fooling." "If you shoot, so will I," said Tom quickly. "And I," added Sam. "We had better have no bloodshed," continued the captain, trying to control himself. "Behave yourselves and you'll be treated all right. Kick up a muss and it will go hard with you." It's meant to be fuss, not a muss. Kick up a mess, kick up a fuss. Muss is another nickname for mess. "What do you intend to do with us?" questioned Dick curiously. "You'll have to ask your friend Arnold Baxter about that." "He's no friend of ours," cried Tom. "He's our worst enemy, and you know it. So why did you say anything?" "If you behave yourselves, I'll see to it that no harm befalls you," continued Captain Langless. "I'm sorry I'm mixed up in this affair, but now I'm in it, I'm going to see it through." Okay, so he's a baddie, but not that bad. Is that what he's trying to say? "You're carrying us off against our will." The owner of the Peacock shrugged his shoulders. "He'll have to talk that over with Baxter and his son. You've been starving us. We were just going to furnish you with breakfast and a small keg of water." "We don't want to stay in that foul-smelling hold," put in Sam. "It's enough to make a fellow sick. If you'll promise to behave yourselves, we may let you on deck part of the time." "You'd better," grumbled Tom. He hardly knew what to say, and his brothers were in an equal quandary. "Now, throw down your arms and we'll give you breakfast here in the cabin," continued Captain Langless. "You won't find me such a bad chap to deal with when once you get to know me. You look like decent sorts of fellows, and if you do the right thing, I promise to see to it the Baxters do the square thing too. We'll be better off on a friendly footing than otherwise." The owner of the Peacock spoke earnestly, and it must be admitted that he meant a large part of what he said. The manliness of the Rover boys pleased him, and he could not help but contrast it with the cowardice of the bully, Dan. I'm glad that's what he was referring to. Perhaps, too, behind it all, he was a bit sick of the job that he had undertaken. He knew that he had virtually helped to kidnap the boys, and if caught, this would mean a long term of imprisonment. Dick looked at his two brothers, wondering what they would have to say. He realised that after all they were in a hopeless minority and were bound to lose in a hand-to-hand struggle. The reality is the captain has command over all of his crew. The only ones he doesn't have control over are the Rover boys and Baxter and Dan. And Baxter and Dan are the ones that are going to be the problem. If he can actually get his crew to do what he wants them to do, instead of them being swayed by Baxter, then he can still have the upper hand. Dick looked at his two brothers, wondering what they would have to say. He realised that after all they were in a hopeless minority and were bound to lose in a hand-to-hand struggle. "We may as well try them," he whispered. "If we fight, one of us may get killed." They talked among themselves for several minutes, and then Dick turned to the captain. "We'll submit for the present," he said, "but mind you, we expect to be treated like gentlemen." "And you will be treated as such," answered Captain Langlis, glad that there would be no struggle. "Come into the cabin and stack those weapons in the corner. They were never meant for anything but wall decorations," and he laughed somewhat nervously. The three lads entered the cabin and put down the weapons. They kept their eyes on the captain and his men, but there was no move to molest them. Thank goodness for that, because we've already heard that he admired them. "You can go," said Captain Langlis to the sailors, "and Wilson, send the cook here for orders." The sailors departed, and with something of a grim smile on his furrowed face, the owner of the Peacock dropped into a seat near the companionway door. He'd just started to speak again when there was a noise outside and Arnold Baxter appeared. "Have you subdued the rascals?" he questioned hastily. "Reckon I have," was the slow answer. "Leastwise they've thrown down their weapons." That's the captain speaking to Baxter. "Then why don't you handcuff 'em again, the rats?" "They're no rats, and I'll trouble you to be civil," returned Dick firmly. "Be polite to me." "Ha! I'll show you," howled Arnold Baxter, and would have rushed at Dick had not the captain interposed. "Hold on, sir," were the words of the ship's owner. "We have called a truce. They've promised to behave themselves if we treat them squarely, and so there are to be no more backbitings." "But, Arnold Baxter was so astonished he could scarcely speak. "You're not going to put them in the hold?" "Not for the present. They'll run away." "How can they when we are out of sight of land?" "They ought to be chained down." "Supposing you let me be the judge of that, Mr. Baxter. I promise to do certain things for you. If I do them, you'll have no cause to complain." "Have you decided to take these boys' part?" said Arnold Baxter, turning pale. "I have made up my mind that treating them like beasts won't do any good." "They don't deserve it." "Don't deserve what?" "To be well treated. They are young gentlemen," finished Tom. "The captain knows gentlemen when he sees them, even if you don't." "Don't talk to me, Tom Rover." "I'll talk whenever I please. I am not your slave." "But you are in my power. Don't forget that." At this moment, the cook of the schooner appeared. "What's wanted?" he asked of the captain. "Bring some breakfast for these three young gentlemen," said Captain Langlis. "Some fresh coffee and bread and some fried eggs and potatoes." At this order, Arnold Baxter stood fairly aghast. "You're going to let them dine here?" he gasped. "I am." But you must be crazy. They'll think they're running the ship." "No, they won't. Leave them to me, and I'm sure we'll get along all right. Come, let us go on deck." "What, and leave them alone?" "I'll send a man down to see they don't get into mischief." "But I don't like this turn of affairs," stammered Arnold Baxter. He was half afraid the captain was going to back on him. "It's all right, come," answered the owner of the Peacock, and a moment later both men quit the cabin. It says quitted as past tense of quit. These days we say quit, past and present. And that's the end of the chapter. And I'm not reading any more today because the chapter's too long for that. We won't be able to fit it in. Anyway, so yeah, there's lots happening. I wonder what's going on in the captain's mind. He sounds like he's got something else going on. Maybe he doesn't really want to continue working with Baxter, and he's got a little plan that he's going to work on. I wouldn't expect him to be entirely straight with the boys, but I don't think he's specifically going to be harsh. I don't know. We'll see. Next time, maybe. They'll get out of it because there are more books about the Rover Boys. We know that much. But we don't know how yet. I'm sure there'll be some fighting and some shenanigans, and and people being clever and sneaky and devious and all sorts of things like that. Because, hey, this is the Rover Boys. That's how it works, isn't it? This is how you keep young boys, preteens and early teens, interested in reading books because it's all exciting, especially when the boys who are reading feel like they're a little bit smarter than the heroes that they're reading about. Gives them something to aspire to, being better than they currently are, maybe. But also reading. Reading's good for your mind. It's also good for how you relate to other people, because it helps you to put yourself in someone else's point of view and understand where someone else is coming from. And it's one of the reasons why people who do lots and lots of reading of fiction often are more understanding of other people's points of view than people who only read manuals and stuff like that, or don't read at all. It's because they've already learnt the wiring in their brain, the pathways, the thinking pathways in their brain have already been strengthened in being able to perceive different points of view, because when we are reading fiction, we see what's going on from the point of view of the author and often the main character. So yeah, it's good. It's healthy. It's good for your brain. It's actually very, very good for your brain. Even listening to it, it paints pictures inside your head, and your body actually acts as though the pictures you are seeing in your head are actually real. Not as strong as if you were seeing the same things. It's one of the reasons that sometimes you just want to curate what it is that you're reading or watching, is because it's your brain treats it as if it's real. You know it's not real, but the reactions you have to it change the way your body and your brain respond to those things in the future. Anyway, enough of that. We'll see you all next